This is the day when debts fall due. So deen and dain are related. It's the day when there's a reckoning, an accounting. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is you that we worship, and to you we appeal for help. So when you have إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, when you put the what would normally be in the maf'ulun bihi position, because it's na'buduka. But when you say na'buduka in Arabic, it doesn't create it doesn't eliminate other things. So you could say that somebody ya'bud Allah wa ya'bud ash-shams. He worships Allah and he worships the sun. But you can't say iyyaka na'budu wa shams. Iyyaka means that only you alone we worship. So when you say iyyaka na'budu, it means you alone. It is you that we worship and no one else. Wa iyyaka nasta'in. And to you we appeal for help. فَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. Like the Prophet ﷺ gave his advice to his cousin Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. When he was very young, he told him, if you're going to seek help from Allah. Which doesn't mean that you don't seek asbab, but you understand that it's only Allah. Even the asbab are from Allah. So you have to understand everything is from Allah. So it's you alone we help. So even when we're seeking help from creation, we know that it's you that has facilitated for us help from others. He's the one who gave you victory. Allah gave you victory, and He gave you the believers to help you. But that's from Allah. So the help that the Prophet got from his companions was from Allah. So only seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Istiqama is uprightness. So this path is the path of uprightness. And then sirat alladhina an'amta alayhim ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. The way of those you have graced. Show us the straight path. The way of those you have graced. An'amta alayhim, you've blessed them, you've graced them. Not of those on whom is your wrath. So the ghadab of Allah is on them. Al-maghdub alayhim. The ghadab is on them. Nor of those who wander astray. So these are the two ways of going astray. One is with knowledge, so you know what you should be doing and you don't do it. And that's why the Muslims are in such a precarious situation, because so many Muslims, I don't know any Muslim in the Muslim world when I lived there that doesn't know the hadith ar-rashi wal murtashi fi an-nar, that the one who bribes and the one who takes a bribe they're both in hell. I don't know anybody that doesn't know that. It's a very well-known hadith. You could almost say it's ma'lum min ad-din daruratan. It's not, but you could almost say that it is, because so many people know that hadith, and yet there's so much of bribery. So that's when you incur the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is when you know what you should do and you don't do it. Whereas the dallin, those who are astray, those are people that don't know. And they're just wandering. In the verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the Prophet was dallan fahada. Like, didn't he find you dallan? It doesn't mean that he was astray. It means that he was seeking. That's why he was going into the ghar of Hira and doing these things. So don't make us from people that don't have guidance, that might be looking for guidance or are just astray. So these are people like, for instance, traditionally, a lot of the scholars put the religious categories in there. I don't think it's a good thing unfortunately, some of the translations actually put between parentheses, other religious traditions and things. It's not really, I don't think it's a good thing to do in a translation, because that goes under commentary, and it just makes it look like, it takes away the umum al-level. It takes away the umum al-level, which is the general statement. Those are the two ways people go astray. If you want to see it archetypally, that it's in all religions, and it's certainly in the Islamic religion. There are people that know the truth and they don't practice it. Those are maghdub alayhim if they continue on their way and don't make tawbah. And then the dhalin are people, they're ignorant. There's ignorant Muslims that just don't know, and so they don't practice what they should learn. في معاني والعلوم التي تضمنها القرآن. These are the sciences, the meanings and the sciences of the Quran. So this is from Ibn Juzay al-Kalbi's, and I think it's very useful because it adds to Imam al-Ghazali's. The first one, he says these are the ma'ani, the 7 meanings of the Quran that Allah subhanahu revealed these meanings to us. The first one is ilm al-rububiyyah, which is knowledge of our Lord, Rabb al-Alameen, who is our Lord. So this goes to Imam's jewels. And then nubuwwah, which is the communication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us through these people that have this special quality, this extraordinary angelic quality of purity, and Allah has prepared them for revelation. The third is the ma'ad, eschatology. What happens after we die? What's the eschaton? What's coming later? And then the fourth is the ahkam of basically how to live in the world. So this is transactional. It's ahkam in the vertical alignment with your Lord. That relates to all the devotional rules that we have. And then in the horizontal alignment with creation, transactional things of learning how to basically buy and sell in marriages, how to behave, all these things. And then the wa'd, which is the promise. And then the wa'id, which is the threat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet as Bashir and Nadir. So he's both giving us a promise. If you obey Allah, then here's the promise. And then there's a wa'id, a threat. And then finally al-qasas, which really inform us of all these things. So one of the most beautiful stories that we have, and all of the Quran are ahsan al-qasas. They're the most beautiful stories. But Yusuf alayhi salam, you will find all of these in the chapter of Yusuf. So you're going to find ilm al-rububiyyah, nabuwwah, ma'ad, ahkam, wa'ad, wa'id, al-qasas. You'll find all of them. So the qasas embody, they're really embodiments of all these meanings. And then he gives certain knowledges that you should not go into the Quran. And Imam al-Ghazali in the Jawahir, he talks about rather in Mishkat al-Anwar, he talks about this hadith about whoever attempts to interpret the Quran with his opinion, bil-ra'i, with his opinion. And ra'i comes from ru'ya, from how you see things. It's your perspective. That's what an opinion is. It's your perspective about things. So ra'a, he saw something, and it's how you're looking at something. He says that is misunderstood, that it doesn't mean that scholars can't interpret the Quran. And Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi, who has a tafsir that has a lot of ra'i in it, Fakhruddin says that it is not just because it was not said by the Prophet ﷺ or the Salaf that we can't find meanings in the Quran. That's a methodology that's permitted to seek out new meanings in the Quran, but it has its requisite knowledges. And so Imam al-Ghazali says what that hadith means, that whoever man yufassir al-Quran bi ra'yi falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar, whoever interprets the Quran with his opinion, let him take his seat in hell. He said it means muwafaqatan li hawahu, like just out of desire to conform with his own desires. So he has his own nafs desires, and he interprets the Quran to suit his opinion. Like recently you've had commentaries that try to interpret the story of Lut to say that it wasn't about homosexuality. Well, what's the agenda behind that? Like who's actually making those interpretations? Because nobody in the history of Islam ever made those interpretations. And so it wasn't just homosexuality, but that was a central part of why they were condemned, for acting on their homosexuality. So that would be, according to Imam al-Ghazali, interpreting it with opinion. And the same is true, and then he said, or not having recourse to the exegetes, which means the science of tafsir. So you have to know tafsir, you have to know the qira'at. I mean, one of the things about there was a South Asian man who claimed to be the seal of the prophets. like the last one, because you have Khatam and Nabiyyin. But in Nafi' it's Khatim. So there's Khatam, which is seal. So he said the Prophet was the seal. But in Nafi' it's Khatim, which means the last, the final. So right there, because he didn't know the qira'at, he made a huge mistake about the nature of the Prophet's mission. The Prophet is La Nabiyya Ba'di. There's no Prophet after him. Ahkam al-Quran. This is a really important area. Imam al-Jassas, the great Hanafi scholar, wrote a book on this. The Imam al-Qurtubi, the great Maliki scholar, Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, has a book called Ahkam al-Quran in 4 volumes. As-Sayis. There's many books that deal with just the Ahkam al-Quran. These are ayat al-Ahkam, about 500 ayahs in the Quran that deal with specifically with legal matters. And so knowing that. And then naskh, knowing abrogation. And there's a big khilaf about this. Some of them have over 100 verses. There's only a handful of verses that are agreed upon about naskh. And generally with the abrogation, Ibn Taymiyyah's principle is sound, that if the conditions of abrogation come again, then they would be muhkama. So many of the verses that relate to qital, they don't apply in places where you don't have state authority or anything like that. In those places, you actually apply all of those hadiths, all of the ayahs that deal with patience and suffering the tribulations of the place you're in if you can't make hijrah.